I think especially the smaller businesses, they tend not to have the basics in order. If they don't have the basic performance marketing data sets right in place or practices in place, big problem if they try to jump on on AI just for jumping on AI.
Because it's the high, right? Everybody's talking about it, right? Yeah. Okay.
There's no data to back it up. So fundamentals are still very, very important. Having everything linked to your CRM and so on and so forth.
So welcome back to Let's Talk C Business. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. And our usual host, Tristan, is back home. So he is spending some good time with the family and friends. But we have another great host on set. Wei Yuan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Wei Yuan. I've been Glintz. I've been in a startup my entire career.
Why?
I don't know, don't ask me. It was a youthful mistake. But basically, I started my first startup in my second year of uni, and I ran that for 8 years. So straight out of graduation, went to it full time. Co-lived and worked with my founders for 2.5 years. So it's an entire journey. In March 2021, I became a regional sales manager at an edtech startup, Series B, and I joined Glintz January last year, also doing regional sales.
Nice. So, okay, great. So Guy has a lot of entrepreneur experience, so I am expecting some good questions from the ground from you.
Yeah, and Tristan,
so I got a lot of questions for you, man.
Yeah, a lot of questions. A lot of questions. So and John, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Jonathan Chiu. I am the lead strategist of BrandRef AI. We specialize in helping companies build capabilities with regards to anything they need, really. It's anything from driving revenue to increasing productivity. So part of this capability development occasionally comes from just upskilling. The other part comes from actually building their pilots, so to speak. So the technical products.
Yeah, so I have a lot of questions. As a business owner, I have a lot of questions about revenue, right?
Everybody now is.
So it's all about growing revenue, right?
That's my team.
Yeah. So yes. So I think maybe for a start, because AI is like everyone's talking about it, but it's always all over the place, very high level, right? So I want to hear from you, like how do I use AI to objectively raise revenue in that sense?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Gen AI or AI in general, it's a GPT, right? And I don't mean generative pre-trained transformer. I mean general purpose technology. So it's really something that can be used across industries. Specific to marketing, in terms of efficiency, which you use yourself already, using generative AI for copy, for assets, that's a clear use case, right? Where you can get a lot more efficient. Your A/B testing becomes a lot more effective. Because in the past, you might have been able to do 1 ad set, right, per day. And now you can do 8.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So from a productivity standpoint, already there is a huge output increase, right? Another advantage of generative AI is it allows you to put out something of value to your customers almost instantaneously. So an example project that we worked on, a smart form was filled up with LDM layer, right, latent diffusion model layer, which is stable diffusion. Then essentially what happens is that renders of the house of your apartment, this interior design, they are generated for the end user. So it creates some level of investment. So there are many ways to use this, but that's just one example, right? But that's generative AI has this opportunity to allow you to add value earlier in the customer journey. So that's potentially valuable.
Interesting. So essentially in that particular form, smart form that you're talking about, that you built for your client, essentially as I fill up what I'm interested in, some sort of a rendering already comes up, In
a way, so the various fields are variables, right? But the biggest problem, if say you use stable diffusion default, your output is going to be all over the place. And there is a lot of work that comes with tuning and making sure that you get accurate, consistent output, which is really the key problem with generative AI in this, at least in this stage.
Okay,
right.
You got to speak a bit more human for us. Okay, so
Sure.
standard diffusion, what is that? And then,
Okay.
yeah.
Stable diffusion
Yes.
is a image and motion generation tool. So essentially, a runway, I wouldn't say spin-off. Stable diffusion actually came first. Runway is a co-IP owner of the stable diffusion model.
These are names of tools, right?
These
Yeah,
are tools.
tools, name of tools, yeah.
Yeah, names of tools.
Okay, nice. So you were talking a little bit about this tuning thing, right? And I totally understand what you're saying, right? Like when you don't tune this thing, it's all over the place,
Exactly.
right? So how do I objectively look at tuning? Like what is good tuning?
Right.
You know, how do I do this?
Right. So I think when you look at tuning, if you use an off-the-shelf solution, right, like ChatGPT, for example, you're using your custom GPT, you have some limited controls because you're not using an API. You may be able to adjust the temperature. There are some hyperparameters you can play with, but there are some limitations because it's just off the shelf. We use a good prompt tends to be, we call them in the space, they call them mega prompts. Mega prompts can be 2 pages long. So therefore, right, and we like to use chain of thought prompting, which is giving examples. So by giving examples, you can actually create a more predictable outcome. So in a case for Wei Yan, for example, he wants his salespeople to speak like him, approach like him. You would give different scenarios and get them to speak in a certain way based on that scenario. So it's actually a lot of work. And while prompting is not a skill, but I think it's an art almost, because typical users would just want to key in a maximum 1 paragraph prompt, right? Nothing hyper long, nothing with additional context like files or multimodal, etc., etc. So there's an art to it. Yeah, if you want consistency.
I want. So tell me more, right? This this mega prompting, right? How do I go about? I mean, it's you just say 2 pages long.
Yeah.
You know, like what are some things inside of this mega prompt?
Could you give me a use case?
I mean, so let's say we want to create content that hits all the time, right? Essentially.
Create content that hits all the time. Yeah. It would depend on the brand.
The parameter, yeah.
And the parameters of the brand, right? So every company you work with, every one of your clients, you would have a certain set of examples. Then depending on the media you're using, say for example, you're going with media buys, right? Media buys need to be output at a certain length. For example, if you're using it for Meta, if you're using it for LinkedIn, you're using it for whatever, you need to take all those parameters into account and provide it with a few good examples. So that would be, and then you need to tune it. So the problem which I think a lot of GPT users tend to do is they tend to use GPT and then they iterate, right? That's another method. You iterate, you ask more questions, and then it tunes over time. The problem with that is it tends to hallucinate and it forgets the earlier prompts. So really your first prompt, if you get it right, that is very powerful. So especially if you have a custom GPT or we actually have a sandbox solution where we tune prompts for clients that don't want to worry about it. So we just tune it, take it, use it, a specific use case. Could be used for anything, right? Could be used for marketing, could be used for productivity, could be used for internal knowledge, whatever it is. Yeah. But
so I want to ask a little bit more about this prompt thing, right? Because from what I understand, you use simple language, right? As simple as possible. Don't be too crazy about this.
Right.
But if I want to run something, because how I imagine what you're talking about as a mega prompt, essentially if I were to put in a custom GPT, it's a uploading of a file, a PDF file, 2-page, to give it an understanding of what I want, right? Something a little bit more than just writing a paragraph, right? And
okay.
I don't know how
Right.
Yeah. And then from there, how do I go about writing it in a sense? Yeah.
So, for example, if you upload a brand guide of a specific client, right?
Yes.
You'd upload the brand guide, but then your prompt itself would also have to be tuned specifically to the output that you want. And you would also have to provide examples of the output that you want. So it's a bit of work, I would say, but I think it's a lot of what I do right now is educating people on how to design these things, right? And leverage AI effectively.
Nice.
Right.
So would you say you have to be very clear as to the use case of your solution before you start going to train it?
Tune actually. So not so much training, training the
tune.
data set, but tuning. You would have to be very clear with regards to the outcome that you want. I would say the world is shifting away from actual coding. I mean, there's still going to be need for coders, don't get me wrong, but more towards the product thinking mindset. So a developer themselves may have spent a lot of, maybe 40% of their time in the past working on syntax, right? But that might change to 20%, and the rest of it is 20% on product, for example, big picture, strategy. So that would be more the skills of the future, being able to think on a higher level.
Nice. And back onto the revenue generation, because that's the idea of today. Although I'm very self-serving, I ask my own questions, yeah? Yeah, but on the revenue generating side of things, right? Can you give me a little bit more of a context in terms of like the B2C type of sales generating process,
Right.
and how do you use at different parts of this part? Because you did talk about the smart form, which is a very front part of, it's about lead, essentially getting the lead inbound and then providing value, nurturing it on some level, right? But the whole chain until it closes, maybe you can give us a little bit more color on that front.
So I think like for you, you run an agency, digital agency, right?
Yeah.
Digital agency. Your fundamentals are still important. What's your ROAS? What's your click-through rate, etc., etc. These things are fundamentally important. The main advantage of specifically generative AI, not AI for predictive analytics, right? Specifically generative AI is really speed. So in terms of iterations, you're able to put out so much more content so much quicker. And so that's really the main advantage of Gen AI specifically. We're not talking predictive. Predictive is, of course, predictive is going to be powerful, but I think especially the smaller businesses, they tend not to have the basics in order. If they don't have the basic performance marketing data sets right in place or practices in place, big problem if they try to jump on on AI just for jumping on AI.
Because it's the high, right? Everybody's talking about it, right? Yeah. Okay.
There's no data to back it up. So fundamentals are still very, very important. Having everything linked to your CRM and so on and so forth. I mean, we talk about, let me give a better example, right? Let's talk about old tech versus new tech. So let's say chatbots, for example, the Singtel chatbot. That's a sequence.
Singtel chatbot. Okay.
Okay, so that's a sequential chatbot, right? At least last I checked.
Yeah.
You have 3 options. You go on, I'm Shirley, whatever. I have 3 options. I ask.
Shirley. Yeah.
You're right?
Yeah. You went viral. Shirley was viral a long time ago, but anyway, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But you have 3 options. You ask questions. You choose from those 3 options. Then you're funneled down to the next linear path, right? And then you go down. Then you have something in the middle, like dialogue flow, where there's some level of natural language understanding, where it can read some language and read some intent. But then now you have the LLM layers where it can fully interact with the end user. Which do you use? Is it true that Shirley is no longer of value? Not necessarily, right? Because sometimes you just want to drive them down a single path.
Yeah.
So the latest is not always the best.
Yeah.
You should always consider your use case. Yeah.
Nice. It's like FAQ. I don't need to talk to you. I just need to tell me the answer.
Sometimes that's what you want, right? Sometimes that's what you want.
Okay.
Yes.
So on the sales process, right? Maybe help me elaborate a little bit more on the old tech and the new tech. I mean, you were already kind of there, but just for our audience that are still haven't even kind of fully gone onto the new tech, the old tech type of platform yet.
Okay. Like chatbots, right?
Yeah.
All chatbots.
Yeah. How are we thinking of from the sales process?
Chatbots are powerful, right? I mean, they are powerful but extremely frustrating. Like even today, I had a problem with one of the tech vendors that we use. It's a long story. So raised the ticket, chatbot replied, no meaningful outcome. Probably have to give them a call tomorrow, right? but chatbots take away a big amount of volume from inbound inquiries or inbound issues, right? So they are useful. And the good thing about a sequential chatbot or chat system, right, is that it pegs you into specific paths. And that's the advantage of a tool like that. You know, it's not bad. It's you got to know when to use which tool. If you want something more conversational, then obviously you want something more dialogue flow or LLM as an underlying layer. But because there are more variables, right? If you have a tool that is based on an LLM, especially if it's externally facing, because that could be quite detrimental to your brand if they give the wrong information.
Yeah, could you elaborate that a little bit more?
Or say, for example, pricing. This gold 18-karat necklace is $2, and you're in trouble, right? So that would be something you'd have to weigh. So you can't afford those kind of mistakes. If the risk is higher, you want to make sure you have sufficient time tested and tuning. Yep.
Would you mind if I take a bit of a direction and change this conversation, right? So I think from my perspective as a sales leader, I think there's two parts to which I like to explore how AI can help. One is on the strategy level, right? As a sales leader, you think about, okay, who are our ICPs, right? What channels are we going to use? What is the messaging we're going to lay out and what we're going to offer? Okay, so on one side, I would like to hear the examples of if you have done in the past, leverage AI for clients or for yourself to guide you in the go-to-market, in the sales plan.
So it's a very B2B type of situation.
Yeah, true. Yes, more B2B.
Yes. So
Wait, actually, can I just snatch back the time before we go to the B2B?
sure.
Because I want to go to the
B2C
B2B.
first,
Yes,
yeah,
but I
okay.
want to close the B2C part, which is a sandboxing, as an idea, right? Because essentially what you were talking about is you want to manage all these uncertainties, based on whatever the LLMs will create, right? So you tune it and all that, right? From a practical standpoint, how do you sandbox this process?
how do you sandbox this process?
Yeah. From an operational standpoint, we're not even technical anymore.
Right, right. So I think, depending on the AI readiness of the team, right? I think your team is fairly AI competent.
Not there yet, but we're going there. We're going there. Yes.
So because you're forward thinking and you're pushing the envelope, and you're very much in the understanding that AI and humans are pretty much going to be partnered going forward, right?
The numbers don't make sense if you don't use it.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because the people who understand AI, like a coder who knows how to use, who uses code assist versus a coder who doesn't insist on doing it by memory, you're just going to lose in terms of speed, right? So I think I mentioned earlier this other partner of mine who had an interview-based evaluation tool. So it's a coding tool where your job hires, they fill up based on scenarios, and they would fill up syntax, right? Wherein they would be evaluated on. So there's a reason why there are two modes. One mode for with proctoring, which means camera on, you can't switch your screen, and another without proctoring. Because honestly, in this day and age, if you don't use code assist, I kind of probably don't want to hire you.
It's like open book, closed book like that.
Well, I mean, you're not being resourceful, right? So that's that. So from a sandboxing perspective, you could, like your organization probably will benefit more from capability development, having experts come in, guide your team with regards to what the best practices are, and so on and so forth, and you level up, right? Another solution is you get a team like ours, which specializes in this kind of work, and then we come in and we sort it all out for you. I mean, again, it depends on your use case. Like for you, you would benefit from it because you have the volume and you need to use it for multiple different clients, right? However, if you're a brand owner and you only need to do it once for yourself, then you'd probably want to use someone like us to come in, organize things for you, tune it for you, make sure it's perfect, and then, you'll be on your way. 6 months later, when the models get revamped or market changes, then we come in and relook at it. So it depends. Again, it depends.
Okay. Fair.
Let's Talk See Business is brought to you by Glint's Talent Hub. We understand that building a thriving business is immensely challenging. It is especially intense for business leaders like yourself. Hence, we want to journey with you. Glint's Talent Hub is the leading all-in-one solution for all your talent needs. Our mission is to pair you with the right talent anywhere across Southeast Asia that fits the unique needs of your business. From there, we handle all your talent management needs. We're talking talent sourcing, hiring, EOR, PEO, talent development. We have a track record of 2x faster team building and up to 70% cost savings. If you want to expand in Southeast Asia, we are your partners. Connect with us, link in the description below.
Yeah, now to the B2B. Yes, B2B is important. Yeah.
Okay, so just to recap my question, right? So let's say as a sales leader, you're in charge of a team and you're supposed to reach a certain goal, right?
Yeah.
Like how have you used or help clients use AI, generative AI, to support that function, both as like maybe a thought partner and to become more efficient?
Right. Okay, we're talking about, in your use case is go-to-market. You're talking about, you have a specific set of steps, identifying the ICP. Again, the ICP identification, this is like the fundamentals.
Yeah.
It's
We need to have
fundamentals.
it, yeah.
If you don't have it, your output's going to be bad,
Yeah.
right? So,
Wait, just for our audience,
yes.
what's the ICP?
okay.
Yes.
Ideal customer profile.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so identifying your ideal customer profile, what's your demographic, what's their role if you're speaking to B2B, right?
Yeah,
like
like
for example,
personas.
Clint's would be HR and so on and so
Yeah.
forth, right? So and what kind of tone of voice you should use. Now this is where tuning, actually coming back to tuning, it's very, very powerful, because if you don't tune it the correct way or with enough depth, the output's going to be bad, as you know. Output is hit and miss.
Yep.
It doesn't always hit. And if it's not responsive to the inputs as well, like you could have baked in your framework, right? But it doesn't respond well to the email that you're meant to respond to, for example. So how do you judge that? In our own sandbox, we have simple data scoring, so you can actually rank the output. Generally, ranking is a good way to start, right? Eventually, you can auto-tune. Probably not necessary in the beginning, but definitely you should be capturing that data set as to whether this prompt was effective or not effective. Can you tag it to a KPI, for example? Did this actually book you a meeting, for example, right?
Yeah.
So many ways you can do that. One thing that has been very popular really was educators specifically trying to leverage an LLM and essentially scale their own voice. So they may have their own framework. For example, we have a client that focuses on account management, and they have a certain framework of how people treat you is essentially how they perceive you. So there's a framework in place, many variables, many steps. And what the users basically fill in is they will fill in the various variables, and the output that will be churned is very reliable.
Right. This is this is the playbook that you should use.
It's just take it,
Oh.
because people don't want to think. The thing is, salespeople, I think all of us, salespeople are typically not they want to get quick wins.
Yep.
Easy wins,
Yeah.
if possible. If they don't have to, they won't prep for the sale. But with a framework like that you put in the LinkedIn, it pulls the LinkedIn, you fill in various fields, and then it creates a recommendation. These are possible steps you can take, and they just follow it. So that's very powerful for us, and that was quite an interesting use case. Yeah.
Okay. It's okay if I continue down the funnel?
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, okay.
I want to hear from you. Yeah.
Sure.
So, I mean,
I
okay,
also
so-
have the B2B side of the business. So
Okay.
important, yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I think what you just elaborated on was really a bit more down towards like the tactics, the execution of it, right? Like let's say I put in a persona and then I have these variables that I fill in, and it comes out with like a playbook, right? These are things you use. This is a sequence you should have, right? So I think that's one part. But how about like Again, I'm just spitballing here, because I don't really know. I've not tried it myself. But
Right.
is there a way for us to, let's say, for example, I want to enter, Indonesia, right? This is my usual ICP.
Okay.
Okay. These are the main things I look out for demographically. And this is my current plan.
Right.
Right? Can I use AI as a thought partner to tighten my approach, or is that too risky, too vague?
You can absolutely use AI as your thought partner, but ultimately everything is data driven. If you have enough data, and everyone has to start somewhere, right? So based on your previous messages, or I'm assuming you're referring to messages. Messages?
One of the things, that's just one component of the outreach, right?
And the strategy, right? And the approach, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the more data points you have, the better you are able to tune the AI, the generative AI, to assist your process. For example, right, if you have a channel strategy, Indonesia, for example,
Yep.
but certain parts, you tend to break.
Yep.
People tend to get turned off, or
Yeah.
I'm not too into setting up an office in
Yeah.
Indonesia, for
Yeah.
example. It kind of is priced badly, right? So this kind of data collection would have to be collected in a non-Gen AI way. But then you tune the AI to fit the data.
Got it.
So ultimately, AI is only as good as the data that is given. But Gen AI, because it's so powerful as a LLM by itself, right? You have that option to adjust that data before you put it in. So unless you're uploading a Excel sheet, which you can, but generally LLMs are not that good for very large data sets anyway. So better for summary statistics, and then you upload that.
Got it. Okay, so if you look down funnel, a bit more specific around the tactics and execution, right? Do you have any examples or stories you can tell around leveraging AI tools as part of the sales funnel? So, for example, if I break the sales funnel down to like sales qualified lead, for example, opportunities, then moving them to agreement review stage, like, do you have specific use cases of tools used at different stages to assist in that funnel?
I would say the frameworks and the methodologies from, say, for example, MQL to SQL,
Yep.
MQL to SQL, right?
Yeah,
Or
marketing
SQL.
qualified lead to sales
Yes,
qualified lead.
correct,
Yeah.
right? And then you have a
Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you. You have a set of steps that you want to take. You then tune that specifically for that use case. So it could be language, it could be process, and then it could be getting from the ground, right? Your salespeople, what worked, what didn't work. Getting from the clients, potential clients, why did they move up, right? This data is still very necessary, and it will be important to start collecting that data. The thing about SMEs, they don't necessarily have all that. The thing about the MNCs is they may have that.
So maybe if you could point us to, I think what you shared is like a process around collecting the right data, right, and then feeding it, and then tweaking it according to the frameworks that you currently have. Right. Do you have any specific tools at each stage? So, for example, like at the SQL stage, you are trying to land a meeting,
Right.
right? What can you use to get there? And then once it's an opportunity, are there tools that we can use kind of accelerate the opportunity to
Right.
move the opportunity down the pipeline?
Right.
So, if you can give like very specific use cases, I think it's very useful
Yeah.
to like our audience.
Yeah. So we have a client project that we worked on that has these frameworks baked in. So essentially, you can bake in anything, right? Like if you want to bake in your Porter's 5 forces, you can bake in your Porter's 5 forces. But if it's proprietary or if it's a bit more complex, that it's not commonly available. The problem is a lot of individuals, they don't want to think about a Porter's 5 forces, right? They just want to fill up the data and they just want to be told what to do. So it could be that framework, it's tuned well. Any input could create any output that is specific to your business and to that situation. So in this case, it would be MQL to SQL or MQL to contract, right? Or SQL to contract, for example, or growth, right? Close to growth,
Yeah.
right? So these things need to be measured. These things will need to be tuned over time. So I think AI I think the key thing here is the stages of AI versus traditional deployment, right? The first step for AI is defining the problem. So what is the problem you're here to solve? Is it MQL to SQL, for example, or account growth, right? Or retention. So that's the problem. And then is this problem big enough to be solved? Is it worth solving? That's one. Then number two, you develop the solution, and then you test internally first. And it's a cycle. After which you go external, you go out to market, and then you're still iterating because your tuning is an ongoing thing. So the main difference between AI versus traditional deployment is it's a very iterative process. It's just the nature of the beast.
Okay, but you know most companies, they don't have big budgets to develop everything in-house, right? Right. So I just want to hear some off-the-shelf solutions that you think are very promising, or based on some of the problems that have been laid out, right? Like what can people use easily?
ChatGPT by itself is a very powerful tool. At $20 a month, it is not expensive at all per seat. Yeah. And you can do a lot with just ChatGPT, right? If you wanted to, you can get Playground. You can get a business account and get Playground, and you can do a bit more. But you can do a lot with ChatGPT stock by itself. So I think one concern point that you'd have to always think about is just because the latest model has been launched. Like for example, 3 weeks ago, GPT 4.0, which is for Omni, was launched. But while it is higher on statistics, lower latency, faster, supposedly more accurate, it may break your previously tuned prompts. So you want to consider whether or not you should jump up or not. It's cheaper also. So there are considerations. Don't always chase the latest, greatest thing, right? There are, optimally, if you want to start using an LLM, you would test across the board, right? You see if maybe Gemini is good for you, and that's fine. If GPT is good for you, stick to that for a while, and then you can always test and iterate. So yeah, I think don't always follow the trend. The latest and greatest is the best until you've used it on a low risk situation.
In what sense?
Well, don't use it externally, for example, to clients. Also, that's GPT's good solution for a fact. Mistral is better because it's cheaper, but it's a small, lightweight model. So that's one. For image generation, media generation, you have Stable Diffusion, you have your mid journeys, you have your runways. Sorry, I'm saying all plural, but there's only one of each. These are tools that are not too expensive from a subscription basis that you can use. And say if you're a thought leadership, right, and you wanted to generate your own avatars of yourself, there are tools like Synthesia, which can generate a mock version of Wei Yuan, for example, and then Wei Yuan can just type in whatever he wants and create an output, right? But the downside is it may or may not be that natural. So you kind of got to weigh and play around with these tools yourself. But these are some of the tools that aren't too expensive, pretty easily accessible, that pretty much everyone can use and benefit from right away.
Fair, yeah. That's the question I want to ask. Because we all know that you can kind of keep scaling up on this tech stack, right? As you move along, as with any other tech stacks. But it's really about what is applied, what is easily accessible to the people, and just kind of test it out. Yeah. And any other last things you want to share around this? How do I improve my revenue and all that? Well, because I think you kind of went through the whole suite of it.
I mean, for your revenue generation, you need to have your numbers, right? So you're running your Google ads, your Facebook ads, your click-through rate, all these fundamentals, they need to be in place. And if now you can generate, say, eight different campaigns in one day, you can very easily identify more campaigns that are effective. And you're in marketing, so just because it's effective
now
doesn't mean next week is
yes.
So the upside is you just become so much more powerful and much more effective. And then with tools like Stable Diffusion or Runway, you can generate assets, right? That you can actually use. So that's a bit debatable because Stable Diffusion is they're being sued for their training their training data, but in terms of TOS, you should be fine as an end user. So it's just something to consider. Depends on your use case again. You're using it for internal decks, probably okay. If you're using it to sell, you may be a bit more exposed.
Nice.
If you can ask one last question.
okay.
If I just maybe you could share like just one story of how you've leveraged like AI to supercharge your own sales engine or for a client. Yeah, just like
Well, okay. So I think one thing that, especially B2B sales, right? B2B sales, we're all about thought leadership. For example, if you're known, you're respected in your space, people will want to work with you. For example, you are the HR architect, you're the HR solutions guy, right? And you can solve HR problems. They're more open to have that discussion with you. I don't have my numbers offhand because I don't have my deck, but we're talking like 60% of clients were more willing to meet with someone they didn't originally consider because that person was a thought leader on LinkedIn. So, you know what I mean? So,
I know.
So things like we kind of have a guarantee when we do that kind of work, right? Thought leadership work. Our own guarantee would be within 4 months is fully hands-off from the client standpoint because my team they're all expert prompters, right? So within 4 months, fully hands-off, number one. And even things like your LinkedIn top voice, right? We have means to be able to replicate that. So
don't need to work so hard already. Copy paste.
it's not really copy paste,
Yeah,
but there's, like I said, it's an art, right? It's either you do it yourself or you outsource it to a team that clearly knows this space, how to provide good inputs to the engine.
Nice. Maybe I just want to double down on that, right? So just on trying to become a LinkedIn top voice, right?
Yeah.
What is your process in that sense? How would you think about it?
Well, there's a lot of content. You need to be in the top 5%. So I'm LinkedIn top voice, obviously, because I sell that. I need to be it, right? So you need to be top 5% for your category, and it's just content play, right? So you need to put out content. But the problem and the danger behind content is if you put out bad content. For example, I had a good friend. I didn't mention it too directly with him, but comments along the lines of "Let's get a pizza," totally not in line with his brand voice, clearly written by ChatGPT. That's actually very detrimental to your brand. So you kind of want to watch that. You want to make sure that this is managed with care, especially thought leaders or any entrepreneur or any manager, right? Your brand is your everything, right? So it's how you sell.
Nice. Okay. Any last things? I'm good.
I think open the floor.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Now I want to take more specific question from the floor. Anybody has very specific things that are tied to your scenario that you would like to ask? Sales market. Okay. Great.
I would say one thing that isn't used as much as it should be is probably RAG, which is basically uploading of positive examples. So in GPT-4, you can actually upload media, right? Yeah. So you can actually upload media as examples, and then you can cross-reference it with your own best practices. For example, your sentences need to be under seven words long, for example, right? And you just go out there and you keep iterating and testing until you find something that hits. But it makes the process quicker, shorter, faster.
Yeah. That's why all the current singers are singer-songwriters. Because it's cheap, easy to run rather than have multiple. No, it's true, right? So it's I think the iterative process, I can second that. Because on our end, as long as we can kind of push the iterative process in a cheaper, lighter fashion, you're easier to find something that hit, and then once it hits, you just double down, right? So it's multiple process broken down.
Once you have a good cost per action, right? Then you put in your money, right? But you use a test budget first. You get something that hits, you double down, triple down, quadruple down.
It's true. And then as a media, we sell the arbitrage to the end client, right? But anyway, that's a different discussion. Yes, thank you. Any other questions?
So when you mentioned you wanted a chatbot on your website, how detailed do you want the output to be? Is it syntax, or is it just like a series of steps? Ah, okay, right. So I think for in your case, if it's a basic question, you might be better off using a linear chatbot like ManyChat or whatever, because say for example, what are your questions, right? What's a typical problem you have? Yeah, exactly.
Watch YouTube.
Right. So right. And people don't read that documentation, or right. And when they get the link to that documentation, do they actually see it through, or do they not log in? They'll figure it out, right? Okay. So like sequential might work well for you. The problem with putting an LLM layer to that is it may be too varied, right? And it takes. You can make it tight, but the problem is it's going to take a lot of work to actually tune to provide like reliable outputs. So I would generally suggest a more sequential flow. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, that's a great question. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the tools that I think you should use, but there are LinkedIn scraping solutions out there. So maybe we can get connected later on LinkedIn, and I'll just drop you the links. You're most welcome. Yeah.
Nice. Great. Any other questions?
No one else wants to find out how to
improve
revenue.
your sales process, make more money. Okay, then I think there are a lot of other things that can be an offline discussion.
Yep.
So thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you for
appreciate
coming.
it.